Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. It's a little bit warmer in Auckland City, in case you are watching from some other place. We are actually in daylight savings already. So it's not summertime yet, but it's getting much warmer. And it's our pleasure to be here another Wednesday connecting with everybody online and being able to again study spiritism a little bit more. So welcome. If you're watching us from Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, whether you're watching right now on Wednesday 7 p.m. or maybe you're watching later, no problem at all. So in terms of news from our group, we are still doing all studies online as restrictions remain because due COVID. So therefore, every Wednesday we're having the study group meeting, and tonight we have a lecture, which is gonna be really good. So we're still doing also our studies on Monday night as well. In terms of updates and news, there's not so much happening in our space, and we're going to let you know when we have some news. So, as usual, we're going to start by reading the inspirational reading tonight, which is from Christian Agenda, number 40. So, we'll always do the inspirational reading so we can um, stay in the same vibration of harmony, of peace, so we can all make the most of the meeting. Number 40, you can be sure. You can talk about kindness at every moment. But if you are not kind, it will be useless for your own happiness. Your hands can write beautiful pages under spiritual inspirations. However, if you do not stamp the beauty of those pages onto your spirit, you'll not be more than a courier without intelligence. You can read marvelous books with emotions and tears. Still, if you do not apply what you have read, you will only be a bad recorder. You can cultivate sincere convictions in matters of faith. Nevertheless, if these convictions do not serve to renew you for the good, your mind will be reduced to a mere book whereon to hang religious maxims. Your capacity to offer guidance can discipline many people, so improve their personalities. Still, if you do not discipline yourself, the law will face you with the same severity with which it is utilized you so to perfect others. You may know the lessons of the pathway perfectly, and may, in the mortal eyes, pass to the gallery of heroes and saints. But if you do not practice the good teachings you know, the divine law will determine that you always have to begin your work over again, each time with greater difficulty. You may call Jesus Master and Lord. However, if you do not want to learn to serve with Him, your words will sound hollow without any meaning. So, really good words for us to reflect. The actions are more important than the talking, so that we can act more and talk less. Um, so, then we're going to do our initial prayer as we always do in our spiritual meetings, so we can be in synchrony with the spiritual friends and with this meeting as well. So, let's then close our eyes, leave outside our problems, our worries, and be present here in this meeting, whether we are in our places or watching from somewhere else, that we can take some time for us to listen, to reflect, and to learn, that we can use this opportunity to renew our energy, to make the most of the positive fluids of this meeting, opening our minds, our hearts for the lessons of tonight. As the passage says, that we can learn how to apply, put in action what we already know. So, would you like to ask permissions to God, Jesus, and our friends to start another Allan Kardec meeting? Thank you. So be it. So, just for maybe some people that are new here and don't know very well how we do those Wednesday meetings, once a month we do a lecture. Tonight the lecture is in English, and next month, for instance, is going to be in Portuguese. So we just change from English and Portuguese. And the other meetings we do a study of Gospel according to Spiritism and Spirit's book as well. And so I'm gonna pass to Mani. He's going to do the lecture, and when he finish, we
Hello.
if you have and throughout the lecture, if you have any comments or any questions, you can put on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll try to give to Mani before the end of the lecture if there are anything, or even if you're watching later, you can put your comments or questions there, and we get back to you as soon as we can. And so after the lecture, then we do our um, we do the vibration and final prayer as well. So now I'm going to pass it on to Mani. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys when he finishes his lecture. Thank you, Mani,
Thank
and
you,
good luck.
Osuni. Thank you for the beautiful opening and the reading and all the news that are non-existent at the moment, but also the reading, which is very appropriate. I think we always try to find a good um, message to go with the lecture, but as we know, um, the spirits are in charge of these meetings, and we have had a um, very interesting and very appropriate message for us because we will be talking about indulgence. Indulgence, according to our base, I should say, on the chapter 10 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is the chapter Blessed are the Merciful, and a few other passages from different books like The Pathway, The Truth and Life, also Our Daily Bread, and of course the Spirit's book as well. And before we start to delve into the topic itself about indulgence, and which is part of a very important composition of the action of being merciful, of act in forgiveness, and how to forgive our brothers and sisters, our neighbors, and even our enemies, as we have seen many times in Jesus' words and examples. It's important to for us to try to understand not only the word indulgence, but also in what context these passages were given by Jesus. With the blessed are the merciful, and also with the blessed are the afflicted, those who mourn. Blessed are the poor in spirit, and so on. They are all parts of the early, the beginning of the ministry of Jesus. This happened just as part of a big and very important and profound way that Jesus had an opportunity he had to reach many people, and that event was known as the Sermon on the Mount, and it that just started, just as I mentioned, was that took place relatively early in the ministry of Jesus, after he has been baptized by John the Baptist, and he finished his fasting and spiritual retreat for 40 days in the desert. That's when he began to preach in Galilee. And for those who have the opportunity to search, if you look for the Mount of Beatitudes, is a today nowadays is a beautiful scenery, where a beautiful hill where you can have the view of the Sea of Galilee. And the moment there is a church there that they built there, the Catholic in the Byzantine era, and it's a beautiful site. Um, as Oceani mentioned, today is a lecture that we're doing online, and it's my first lecture online, so I haven't actually prepared any slides or any pictures like that. So it's going to be just straight off the bat talking. But if you are interested to know and to find out, you can have a look at the Mount of Beatitudes. Um, to see the inspiration that Jesus had, the natural beauty that Jesus had around him when he made his cases of these beatitudes. And the beatitudes, which in Portuguese we call the bem-aventuranças, um, is being anglicized. The terminology beatitudes, beati means blessed or happy. And these beatitudes, which are 80 in total, they consist pretty much of two parts or two phases. Normally it comes the condition and then the result. And in almost all cases, the phrases are familiar from the Old Testament. But as he mentioned before, he came to bring us a new paradigm. He didn't come to destroy the law of Moses, the law that was written at the time, but he came to bring a new paradigm, a new idea. He came to complete the law. So he brings in this Sermon on the Mount, he brings these old teachings to new levels and new ideals, where up to then people were believing a very vengeful God, in a very harsh God. And Jesus brought us the idea of a loving Father as a picture of God. So yeah, these beatitudes, they present a new set of ideals that focus on love and humility rather than force and exaction or execution of this force. So they echo the ideas of Jesus' teachings on spirituality and compassion. So because it was such early on his preaching, this is a fundament, is a foundation of his teachings in general, of love and compassion. Um, and Allan Kardec, while he was compiling the Gospel according to Spiritism, he used five of these Beatitudes to come up with five different chapters of the Gospel according to Spiritism. We can see the blessed are the afflicted on chapter 5. We can see blessed are the poor in spirit on chapter 7. Blessed are the pure of heart in chapter 8. And blessed are the meek and the peacemakers, or the peaceful or the pacific, in chapter 9. And finally, we can see the blessed are the merciful on chapter 10, which is where we took the inspiration for this topic, this lecture here tonight. So, in this blessing or in this beatitude, the condition of receiving this reward or this award is to be merciful. The result and the consequence is they will be shown mercy. So the first part, be merciful, and the result is for they you will be shown mercy. So if you are merciful, you will receive mercy. You have mercy as a award for your act of kindness, of love and compassion. And in fact, on that very same sermon, um, when a little bit later on in the sermon, Jesus he gives us a summary on the recipe, or like a recipe of how to pray, the Lord's Prayer. When we open ourselves to the Creator, when we pray, we in fact we use that same logic of causality, cause and effect, and we tell, Lord, forgive us our debts, but as we also have forgiven our debtors. So that's a condition of for us to be forgiven, that we forgive. So when we pray, we the Lord's prayer, or we are actually giving Him this condition. We open ourselves to give this condition as we forgive our debts. Forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. So we give them this condition of forgiveness, of mercy, to receive mercy in return. And as we know, um, up to recently, up to Spiritism coming, as a human race in general, we pretty much uh, we personalized God. As we have seen on Genesis 1 in item 27, as we can see that it was written in the Old Testament that God created mankind in His own image. So, as we have a very limited imagination and intelligence, we believe that we put our qualities, which are still very inferior, into God. So we believe that God will be punishing as we are punished. We give Him our inferior image, which should be the other way around. God created us in His image, so we are evolving toward His perfection. So it's time that we depersonalize God and try to understand God in a different way. And that is exactly what Allan Kardec did on the first question of the Spirit's book when he asked he doesn't ask who is God. He asks what is God. So he already taken away the personification of God. That God, and the answer, of course, is God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. So it's an intelligence, it's not a person. So if that intelligence is supreme, he's everything that he does is perfect. And later on, as describe trying to find a way to describe God, which due to the nature of our imperfections in our low evolution, Kardec tries to summarize the qualities of God. He asks the spirits that if when we state that God is eternal, infinite, immutable, immaterial, one, all powerful, and supremely just and good. A very important highlight on that supremely just and good. Don't we have a complete idea of God's attributes? And then I'm just reading here so I don't miss out anything. The spirits reply, from your own point of view, yes. So that's the complete idea that we can have. But because you believe that in so stating them, you therefore have named all of them. Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent person, things your language cannot define because it is limited to your ideas and sensations. So when we say that God is supremely just and good, we cannot understand how far His mercy comes towards us. We don't stop to think that how merciful he was when He created us, how merciful He is by giving us daily opportunities of growth, daily opportunities and challenges to betterment, to better ourselves. We have this very limited idea of because we don't understand, like the Spirit's answer in question 13. We don't understand the mercy of God, and we are still very far from understanding this justice. But the good thing is that we have. He also gave us something that is still developing in us, because as Allan Kardec later on goes on to further discuss and further strip down all the ideas that his spirit gave him, he puts down, and especially on the attribute of God being supremely just and good, he tells us that the providential wisdom in the divine laws is revealed in the smallest things as well as in the largest. So his wisdom, his justice, and his goodness is everywhere, in the smallest things and as well as in the largest. And this wisdom makes it impossible for us to doubt either God's justice or goodness. We just have to have eyes to see and look for it. And these divine laws, I mean, I should say that the fact that we understand that the divine laws are part of of nature itself, and part of the creation, and part of everything that God has touched, it is very important for us to understand later on how to apply and how to understand that these laws, especially when it comes to being merciful, to understanding, to judging, um, because this will give us a better source of understanding all the beautiful lessons left by Jesus on that beautiful Mount of Beatitudes by the Sea of Galilee, and further explained later on by the superior spirits on the chapter 10 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. We know that God is loving and merciful, like I mentioned, and He has already forgiven us. He forgives us on a daily basis of our mistakes, of our growing pains, of our inexperience as well. Because we always have the opportunity to start over, start again, in order to improve ourselves. So the question and is, so why do we need to be merciful in order to be able to receive mercy back? First of all, that's a very important question because, as I mentioned before, it explains a lot the causality of things. How for every action there is a reaction, and for every anything that for every act there is a consequence. So the consequence of being merciful is that you are able to receive mercy back. And we can see that in many of these passages that this chapter brings us. There are 21 different items on this chapter. And of course, the first ones are always taken from the Gospel, from the New Testament. And then the last ones are the teachings of the spirits or instructions from the spirits. And the theme of this lecture, Indulgence, are the last five of them from the 16 onward, 16, 17, 18 mainly, and then 19, 20, 21, which are consequence of that. But before we get to that, this today indulgence, which is a very important part of this of the action of being merciful, um, they also give us the idea that we need to forgive so that God will forgive you. That's one of the items. The other item is reconciliation with one's adversaries, the sacrifice most pleasing to God, the speck and the plank in one's eyes, and do not judge so that you yourself might not be judged. And then he mentions that very famous parable of let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And then come the Spirit's teachings. So when we go into to study the first parts of it, forgive so that God will forgive you, and we can see that um, we say that forgive so that God will forgive you, and we, as I mentioned before, we have this idea still remaining from the Christian guilt and idea of judgment, that God will punish us and God will judge us and God will be actively applying His divine laws to us. If we think back that, like I mentioned before, like we studied that God is the um, primary cause of all things, supreme intelligence, and He is everywhere, but He is everywhere through the application of His divine laws. And when we say that God will be judging us, is actually the His divine laws working through us. And as we can see, we can find on the Spirits book. Um, I'm just trying to find information here on the Spirits book, and we can find when God say that when the spirits ask, Allan Kardec asked the spirits, I should say, where is the divine laws, where can we find the divine law? And then the spirits say that they are actually part of our conscience. And so we have all these moral laws, all the divine laws, they are in our conscience. And when we use our judgment to judge other people, we are pretty much giving the measurement that we are going to be judging ourselves. in the need that we are judging ourselves. So, for example, in this case, that in this item number 4, um, oh, I found here. The question is on the Spirit's book is question 621. Allan Kardec asks the spirits, where is God's law written? So he says, in the conscience, in the conscience. So when we go against the divine laws, which the basic law, the highest of them all, is the law of love and justice and charity. When we break that by not being charitable towards our brothers and sisters, we feel the urge to correct ourselves with this law. Um, so we have all these laws in our conscience, but and we carry them within our yet ever evolving conscience. The seeds of all the divine laws, they are slowly sprouting, blooming, developing, growing. And of course, as I mentioned before, that includes the highest of them all, the greatest of them all, the greatest commandment, as Jesus said. That includes the law of justice, love, and charity. So this is the reason why we need to forgive, so that God will forgive you, and He will forgive us through His divine laws that we have inside us. And of course, this conscience, they are they're potentially all equal. The potentiality of them developing and becoming perfect, it's all equal. But because we are all different spirits and we all have different experiences, and we all together in this uh, planets in transition between the second and third step of moral evolution, there's a big difference of the inhabitants of this planet. Some have a conscience a bit higher, some a little bit lower still, but we all in the progress of reaching there. So it's easy for us to see that there's a big difference, but we shouldn't be focusing on the difference. We should be focusing on the fact that we all came from the same place. We all going towards the same place. So another important fact is that he comes to tell us that to reconciliate with our adversaries while we are walking with them, while we are together with them. That means bringing us the urge to make peace of one another while we are still living. Because once we disincarnate, when our flesh dies and we continue living in the spiritual world, then it will be much harder to do that, because we never know where these adversaries, which in other words are just brothers and sisters with whom we have difficulties with, because a lot of the times we're not able to forgive them. A lot of the times are not able to be indulgent toward them, to be tolerant towards them, and then this can later on become a connection with them that will go beyond the grave. That comes on this passage as well, on chapter 10. And in fact, in that particular passage, he says that we should reconcile with the adversaries. If you have a problem with somebody, bring him with you in private and talk in private, because then you will gain a brother or a sister in that case. And then Peter asked him, how many times shall we forgive? 7 times? And they just said, no, not 7 times. 70 times, 7 times. But did Jesus actually mean to tell us to forgive our brothers and sisters only 490 times? I think it was just an allegory to was a sign that we should do that act many more times, as many as needed to in that person's journey, because if we forgive in that way, we also going to be forgiven that way. um, and we also say that he says, conciliate with your adversaries while we walk with them, so that he does not hand you over to the judge, so that the judge does not hand you over to the minister of justice. So that's the exemplification of our conscience. Because when we do something wrong, or something that goes against what we believe to be right, or against the divine laws, we know it. We have a heavy conscience. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but later on we might be able to feel heavy conscious bringing up to us. And sometimes we actually use that um, towards other people actions. We use something that we're going to see a little bit later, which is called the psychological projection, when we see things that we haven't dealt with. Sometimes not even the fact that we do them. Sometimes we don't do them, but sometimes we wish we had the courage to do them. And we project these weaknesses, these tendencies, these vices that are sometimes desirable to us in a subconscious level into other people. And that is why Jesus also told us in another item, um, in Matthew 7, um, chapter 7, items 3 to 5, that that we shouldn't worry about the speck in our brothers and sisters' eyes, in our neighbors' eyes. We should focus on the plank that in ours, because we are very easy and very quick to to criticize, to judge, to shame, to blame others, aren't we? We are very, when it comes to see something that we disapprove, either physically or lately, because we've been confined to our own homes, online, we see different opinions, politically, socially, or even religiously. We are, even if we don't criticize them directly, we send a little link on a post or criticizing or judging people. We are experts on that. And we are very often, we notice our neighbor's eyes, but while we have a plank in ours, we don't really notice that, because we don't allow our egos to realize what we do or what we would like to do. And we sometimes we go further, and we seldom say to other people, "Oh, let me take that speck out of your eye." But then Jesus calls us out. He says, "You are hypocrites. First, you take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll be able to take the speck out of your brother's eye." That's once again is in Matthew 7, 3 to 5. So we experience all the time, like I mentioned, not only in conversations, in social gatherings, but lately on the internet. And psychology has a name for it. It's a defense. It's a defense mechanism that people subconsciously employ to cope with difficult feelings or emotions. My sister that is watching at the moment now, she's there. She's a psychologist. I mean, she's one of the psychologists of the family, because my mom is also the psychologist of the family. So they know really well about that. Because things that we can see in other people that catch our attention into other people. It can be somebody you know, can be somebody you work with, can be a celebrity, can be anything that you see. It reflects what we have subconsciously. Sometimes you don't even know, because it works on a subconscious level. As we know um, our nature, which is comes from other reincarnations, and these are molds built upon molds. We have molds that were built on us in this incarnation that we don't know. A lot of trauma in our childhood, in our teenage years, acquired habits and behaviors that sometimes are come from other people, from our peers, from society, and sometimes we don't even realize. But imagine having these molds that were built in our subconscious, mold upon many different realities, many different um, um, in reincarnations, I should say. So it is a very interesting thing to ponder and to realize as well. So I'm just going to steal. I said I don't have many things, many slides prepared, but I have prepared one of them here, and it's is this one here that it shows by Carl Gustav Jung or Jung, that we project everything that irritates us about others, can lead us to understanding of an understanding of ourselves, because deep inside, that's what pretty much what we're doing, are projecting the difficulties that we have in ourselves, the difficult times, the difficult reactions, the emotions, feelings that we have, and we use that to project on other people. It's easier. It's easier to criticize. It's easier to make yourself feel a better father when you see somebody else dealing with their kid and they go, "Oh, so and so is such a bad father." Not that I think like that, guys, but just an example. But it's just an example of showing that we actually are able to do that when we criticize, even when we feel if it's the slightest acts that we can do or thoughts that we have, something irritates us, is because we have that somewhere in us that we need to deal with and we need to overcome. So that's when it comes when you judging others and criticizing others, you are pretty much giving a measurement on how you are going to be judged, not by God necessarily, not by a supreme court, not by the angels or the good spirits or whatever you want to call them, but by your own conscience. Because what you expect of other people is in fact what you're expecting of you, of becoming better, of improving yourself. But a lot of the times we project that into other people. And that's where it comes to the finally to the topic of this evening. So that took me half an hour just to get into the topic of this evening, because it's important to understand um, the concept of indulgence, and it's something that has always been in the back of my mind. That word, indulgence, indulgence, because as we know, the Spirit's book and all the codification was written in French. Okay, so the word indulgence actually was supposed to be pronounced indulgence, indulgence, with my pardon my French, but it's in French has a different meaning. I was having a look into the different um, definitions of indulgence, because it's similar to Portuguese. Indulgência, indulgência, it's something that creates and brings a positive connotation. In English, however, it can have a good connotation, but it can have somehow a negative connotation. Um, I looked through a dictionary that I trust, on a dictionary online, and I can share with you guys this definition. It's very I found it very interesting to show, so everyone can see that what actually indulgence. Because I remember when I first came to New Zealand, there was a ice cream advertisement, Magnum, and there was this beautiful ice cream covered in chocolate and gooey caramel on top, and then always says "indulge yourself." And with my Portuguese brain, I was like, "Indulge yourself? What does that mean? Indulge yourself?" Because to me, indulge, being a spiritist from a long time, indulge is to have towards other people, not to yourself. So that's pretty much what the in English what it's more related to. So if you look here, if you kind of read with me, I'm not sure if you can read. Can you read okay there, Sione? Is it easy to read? Yeah. Okay. She's giving me the thumbs up, so I'll continue. So it goes to say that um, it is the. I need to move the camera a little bit, guys. Sorry. It is the behavior or attitude of people who allow themselves to do what they want, or who allow other people to do what they want. So they give an example. She lived a life of selfish indulgence. And they give another example. They treated the sick boy with indulgence. They showed great indulgence toward the sick boy. So letting the sick boy do whatever he wants. Or number two is here, the act of doing something that you enjoy, but is usually thought as wrong or unhealthy. Number three, something that is done or enjoyed as a special pleasure. That brings me back the memory of the indulge yourself, the moment of the indulge yourself, the Magnum ice cream, and and so on. Another indulgent, another not this time not indulgence, but indulgent as the adjective, willing to allow excessive leniency, generosity, or consideration. So as we can see, it brings a little bit of a negative connotation. And you're talking about indulging grandparents, remember that those grandparents that give everything to their kids, and we use another word in English to spoil them. In Portuguese say mimar, but in English actually you give them everything they want, they become spoiled. you know. So it's and so I don't believe that's the definition that the spirits wanted to use when it comes to charity and benevolence and tolerance. So I think for an English thinking mind, indulgence, of course, as we read the descriptions, we can understand. But I relate more into the words of tolerance, of generosity, of being tolerant, to being kind, to being respectful towards those who think differently from you and act differently from you, because at the moment you start to judge, you are putting yourself either lower to that person, that higher. And once we do that, we also have to remember that there are others that are above us as well. And we, as we follow our spiritual journey and the moral evolution, we were there. We were in a position that we didn't know what to do and how to react. So it's very important in these days where we can see, where every thought is written down and put out to the world to see. It's very important for us to take a moment and to see how are we reacting to these um, actions, to these words, to these thoughts, to these feelings. Because according to the spirits, now going into the actual Gospel according to Spiritism. If we go here to item 16, and I want to share a few pages with you guys, so indulge me for a moment. Be patient with me for a moment here. We can see that indulgence, and he pretty much direct this first message, number 16, was given by Joseph, a protecting spirit. He's directly talking to us, spiritists. Spiritists, today we would like to speak to you about indulgence. That sentiment so sweet, so fraternal that all people should have for their brothers and sisters, but which few put to good use. Yeah. And it's amazing how the first thing to notice is that he's saying that the indulgence is a sentiment, is not a reasoning thing, is a feeling, is an emotional baggage that we carry and that we use towards those our brothers and sisters. But there are few of us who actually put into practice. Like I mentioned before, we're very easily triggered by other people's actions to um, to unbalance ourselves, to deharmonize ourselves, to bring give us make us impatient and frustrated. And indulgence does not see the defects of others, or if it does, so the important to see, indulgence can still see the defects of others. It avoids talking about them or publicizing them. On the contrary, it hides them so that they do not become known. And if malevolence uncovers them, indulgence always has an excuse to mitigate them. That is, a plausible and genuine excuse, and not one of those that has the appearance of mitigating the wrong, but actually emphasizing its clever uh, perfidy. And it's interesting to see that he puts indulgence, number 26, and he also put here indulgence 26. And then as a footnote, he gives us that the Spirit's book in question 886, the true meaning of charity, benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness for offenses. So without indulgence, we cannot forgive. That's the importance of indulgence. If we cannot tolerate, if we cannot even tolerate the wrongdoings of other people, or the by disinformation, by choice, sometimes we are not able to forgive. And I always try to a good way for me to remember that the true meaning of charity is a biff, benevolence, which is another Latin word, bene, well, and vele, which is to wish well. Wish well towards everyone. Don't hate anybody. Don't have wishes that go um, animosity towards our brothers and sisters, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, tolerate the imperfections of others. Okay, and it's important that we're going to talk a little bit later on that indulgence doesn't mean condoning either. Doesn't mean that you're going to see something wrong and be quiet about it and pretend, no, everything is fine, nothing. No, there is a way of indulgence because he says here, indulgence does not see the defects of others, or if it does, it avoids talking about them in public. There is a way of dealing with imperfections of others. And as we continue here on the number 16, actually, we can go a little bit further. Um, as yes, it's still on this passage here, just where we can see my mouse here going. Therefore, be stern, be harsh, be firm towards yourselves, and indulgent towards others. So, if you see something, an action of somebody that annoys you, because sometimes, or most of the times, we are actually projecting something from ourselves, be indulgent towards others, tolerate them, but look, why is that annoying you? Why is that something that somebody did digging you so deep inside your soul? Be stern towards yourselves. Not, of course, being severe or being harsh or try to punish yourself. No, but try to analyze, try to understand why are those actions or those behaviors affecting you in such a deep level. Remember God, who judges in the last instance, who sees the secret thoughts of each heart, and who consequently frequently forgives the wrongs that you condemn or condemns those that you excuse. Once again, thinking that the law, the divine laws of equality, of justice, they are inside us, but we don't know how to use them because we forgive, we forgive, God forgives the wrongs that we condemn, and He condemns the ones that we excuse. Because once again, sometimes we have indulgence, an excessive indulgence towards the ones that we love. Oh no, he only did that. Oh my, oh poor my poor son. He only did that because in school he just did something to the other kid. He was bullying the other kid because of this and that. We're always trying to find excuses, and we find excuse because we have indulgence. It's easy to be indulgent for those we love, but you have to be indulgent towards the imperfection of others, of everyone. So we continue here on number 17. Be indulgent towards the wrongs of others, whatever they may be. So difficult, isn't it? Do not judge with severity except where your own actions are concerned. The Lord will show indulgence towards you to the degree that you have shown indulgence towards others. Once again, once when we judge other people severely and harshly, we're only creating a measurement that is going to be applied to us. Yes. So, and we shouldn't be doing that just so that we get off scotch free either, because we will need to overcome those challenges. We will need to learn from these challenges as well. And of course, just like we read on the first part from Christian Agenda, that Alcione read, it doesn't do any good for us to be here talking about it, preaching about it, and I'm gonna not gonna pretend that even though there's a bit of light here on top of me, it's just a reflection of the lights that here. It's not a halo. Okay, I'm not a saint either. I'm not a superior spirit either. I have my mistakes and I have my judgments as well, but we are here to together to learn, to share experiences, to share a little bit of what we read around so we can learn from one another, because that's the only way that this planet, as I mentioned before, in a planetary transition, will actually achieve it if we all come together and face our own uh, mistakes, our own imperfection, our own weaknesses. So if we look here again, um, Um, let me just see if I can find here number. Yeah, this message was by John, Bishop of Bordeaux, 1862. So all these three messages are from three different spirits, uh, and it's something that is important as well. John is saying here where my mouse is. Whenever you forgive your brothers and sisters, do not content yourselves with casting the veil or forgetfulness over their wrongs. The veil is frequently very transparent to your eyes. Bring them love at the same time as forgiveness. Do for them what you would ask for your Heavenly Father to do for you. Replace the anger that defiles with the love that purifies. Isn't it beautiful? Replace the anger that defiles with the love that purifies. Preach by example the active, inexhaustible charity that Jesus has taught you. Because as we know, as we study these, Jesus. Um, oh, I forgot to share the passage with you guys. That's what I'm talking about here. Whenever you forgive your brothers, whenever you forgive your brothers and sisters, do not content yourself with casting the veil of forgetfulness. Replace the anger that defiles with the love that, I'm going to highlight this, the love that purifies. Preach by example the active, inexhaustible charity, which once again, I'm amazed by the coincidence that we've had that passage from the Christian agenda. And I brought two more. We are pretty much, oh, we still have a bit of time, don't we, Osuni? Give me the thumbs up. We have a bit of time. Okay. Um, yeah, so once again, bringing back what John, the Bishop of Bordeaux, is telling us here, that we shouldn't just forgive and forget of what was done. No, we should remember. We should remember, but that remembrance shouldn't affect us anymore. Um, because that's something that I was looking for. I couldn't find it online whose quote that is, but saying that that it's very simple to forgive. Just don't get offended. If you don't get offended, you don't need to forgive because you use your indulgence or your tolerance in such a way that you didn't you disregarded that action. You see that action as somebody that is suffering, somebody that is being to us, somebody that is being aggressive towards us, somebody that is being verbally violent towards us or towards our ideas or our feelings. It's somebody that is in desperation themselves. It's somebody that is in pain, somebody that is having those struggles. So it's important for us to keep that in mind when we find these actions that upsets us and that can bring us that sort of negativity as well. Um, can you still see me, Osiuni? Can you hear me okay? Okay, because I just noticed it came a message on my screen here saying that my internet signal is very weak. So we could keep going on. If anything goes wrong, I think I'll find out soon. Um, so yeah, if we go to number 18 now, we go back to that idea of being harsh towards ourselves. And this one, this message comes from Dufetre, Bishop of Nevers. He's saying, reminding us that, dear friends, yeah, okay, is that right? Yeah, dear friends, be strict with yourselves, but indulgent toward the weakness of others. Doing so is a further practice of holy charity that few observe. All of you have evil tendencies to overcome, defects to correct, and habits to change. So is when I was reading this, I thought of something that we used to say back in Brazil, that I learned when I was a kid. You know, when you point the finger, you're pointing the finger. Because normally you don't point like that, right? You point like this. When you're pointing the finger at somebody else, you have three pointing back at you. Those three that come behind. So you're pointing the finger at somebody. You're doing this. You have three that is giving you up. Is showing that you might have something to fail as well. Because we all have. Nobody in this planet is perfect. We all have our burdens. We all have our tendencies to overcome. And by noticing that in somebody, we open it up for others to judge us as well, including and especially our own conscience. So I'm going to go in now, instead of just going on the gospel, I want to show you guys this beautiful passage from the Pathway, the Truth, and Life. And I'll share that with you guys. It was taken by from the gospel from James chapter 4, item 8, inner purification. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double minded. Let me see if it's okay. Yes, we are in the right page. Okay, James chapter 4, item 8. Each person has an external life, known and analyzed by those who surround him or her, and the intimate life of each person, which only they can provide the testimony. So only us are the witnesses of our personal life. The inner world is the source of all good or bad principles, and all outward expressions keep their foundations there. So everything that we express in our actions, in our reactions, are found in this inner life that we have. As a rule, we all have serious inner deficiencies that need of rectification. Just to clarify once again what we just read from the Gospel according to Spiritism. But the job of purifying is not as simple as it sounds. It would be very easy for a person to confess the acceptance of religious truth, operating verbal adherence to edifying ideologies. Another thing, however, is to carry out the work of elevating oneself, making use of self discipline, of brotherly understanding, and the spiritual sacrifice. The Apostle James perfectly understood the gravity of the matter, and he advised the disciples to clean their hands or to wash their hands, that is, to rectify their activities of the outer plane, renew their actions in the eyes of all, appealing for the purification of the feeling to be carried out equally in the sacred precinct of conscience, once again, our judge, the conscience, known only to the apprentice in the solitude inscrutable of your thoughts. The valiant companion of Christ, in this case James, however, he did not forget to state that this is work for the double encouragement, because such a renewal will never be done only at the expense of glowing words. So all these glowing words, all these ideals that we talk about, they are going to be useless into our inner purification if we don't put them to practice. Once again, just like what we read on the first item 40 of the Christian agenda, we need to start slowly putting them to work towards ourselves, towards our to help other people, so we can, in this case, start helping ourselves as well. And so, um, and as we continue on the gospel according to Spiritism, there's another. Oh, sorry, there's something else that I want to show you guys. I'll need to stop sharing this page, and I'll need to start sharing this other page. If you indulge me for a moment, it's going to be my favorite word now. Indulge me. If you bear with me for a moment here, I'm going to share with you guys um, another page from another book that we quite often used in our daily prayers, in our which is by the daily bread. Let us understand by serving, because we too were once foolish. Paul, in the letter to Titus, chapter 3, item 3. And I'm going to change it so I can actually read. The hammer certainly takes part in perfecting the sculpture, but it cannot beat the stone indiscriminately. The bitter medicine may heal a sick body, but knowing the correct dosage is required, no more, no less. It is also crucial for us not to act impulsively in the sowing of truth. While on the earth, we do not live in a dwelling for angels. We comprise millions of individuals in a maze of clamorous past debts, yearning for deliverance. Those who teach with sincerity have learned their lessons after having overcome difficult obstacles. Of course, excessive tolerance, once again here, excessive tolerance results in an absence of just defense. However, it cannot be denied that in order to educate others, we need a great deal of patience and understanding. Incisive and forceful, Paul was fully aware of this fact. Writing to Titus, he recalls his own incomprehension in the past in order to justify the peace of mind that should categorize our work in the service of the service of the redemptive gospel. We will never reach our objectives by tormenting others' wounds, by pointing out their scars, by commenting on their defects, or by throwing thorns in their face. Understanding and respect must precede our work everywhere. Let us remember our own passage through the lower realms, and let us extend our fraternal arms to our brothers and sisters struggling in darkness. So this is a very important message to keep to ourselves when we are um, thinking of indulgence, because as we're going to see once again in the continuation of the Gospel according to Spiritism, um, on on item 19, I should say. Where is it? Okay, chapter 19. Since no one is perfect, does it follow that no one has the right to reprehend one's neighbor? Of course not, since each of you must labor for the progress of all, especially those whose tutelage has been trusted to you. But you must reprehend others with moderation, with a useful purpose, and not as is usually done, for the pleasure of denigrating them. Because how do we normally criticize people? Do we criticize them going, oh, maybe you should, or you could, or, well, yeah, sometimes we're quite harsh, especially behind their backs, right? Especially behind the keyboard and behind the screen of the computer or a smartphone. We don't use this idea of being respectful and being loving and being kind and being sweet, like just like Joseph tells us, that sweet sentiment that we should have towards everybody. We are quite harsh when we are dealing with other people, but we should bring to the surface what is not right. But is not what we say, but how we say it. It's how we use the charity that it's expected of us, that already know a little bit more, and know that if we are harsh towards others, our own conscience will require of us, following the divine laws, that we are going to be harshly treated as well. And someone that is kind, someone that is gentle, someone that is sweet, is surrounded by sweetness, is surrounded by kindness. Others that think like them and act like them will follow them, will be around them, and it will be much easier to face life like this than being bitter and having bitter people around you. Because as we know, with the law of attraction, we attract those who think like us next to us. So this is from San Louis, and I was going to change the book a little bit and bring us this idea, the same idea now from the Spirits book, in question number. Am I on the right page? Yes. On the Spirits book, when he's going at question 903, when Allan Kardec asked the spirits, "Is it wrong to study others' defects? If it is for the purpose of criticizing and divulging or disseminating them, it is wrong because it displays a lack of charity. If it is with the intention of applying it to oneself in order to avoid the same defects, it may be useful. You must not forget, however, that tolerance for the defects of others is one of the virtues entailed in charity. Just like we read on question 866, it's one of the characteristics of true charity. Before criticizing people's imperfections, think about whether others may say the same about you. Once again, thinking about that psychological projection. So try to possess qualities that are opposite to the defects you criticize in others. This is a means of perfecting oneself. It's interesting that he's using here the means of perfecting yourself, because we have seen this means of perfecting oneself before. We see I lost my script here. I have so many pages open, and now um that I forgot where I can find it here. But um we see that um um when Allan Kardec asks the spirits, what are the main means of perfecting yourself? He says, do what a sage of your antiquity said once: know yourself. So how can we know ourselves? When we criticize people, we look into that into us. For example, this is also a mean of perfecting yourself. This is also a mean of knowing yourself. If you criticize them for being avaricious or greedy, be generous. If you criticize people for being harsh, be nice. If you criticize people for acting with pettiness or being small, be expansive in all your actions. In a word, act in such a way that these words of Jesus may not apply to you. You see the speck in your neighbor's eyes, but you do not see the beam in your own. So it's quite um, refreshing for us to see that we can use other people's imperfections to try to help them, but also try to help ourselves. Try to help ourselves. How is if that person's imperfection act, because the person is not imperfect, the person is in the development of perfection. How is that affecting me? How can I do to change what that person is doing in applying to my life? It's quite amazing, this the idea that the spirits are bringing us on this question 903. Because when we think about and we try to emulate what Jesus once told us, because as the spirits have told us, the perfection, the model of perfection of this planet is Jesus. And what happened when they brought the woman that committed adultery, when the Pharisees and the scribes were trying to trick Jesus into going against the law of the scriptures? And when he said the first one that has not committed a sin can throw the first stone. He didn't ask the woman, "Oh, how did that happen? Who did she commit adultery with?" He didn't care. It doesn't matter how it happened. The same way that Jesus, as we have seen recently on the chapter, you cannot serve God and Mammon, when Zacchaeus, that publican that in that time they were seen as being very greedy people that didn't care about their neighbors. And Jesus saw Zacchaeus and said, Zacchaeus, come down the tree because I need to go into your house. And everybody was thinking, but why is Jesus going to Zacchaeus' house? He's a sinner. He's a greedy tax collector. And then Jesus went there, and Zacchaeus redeemed himself by saying, everything that I have, half of what I have, I give back to the people. And if I have committed something sinful against someone, I will repay them double. So he redeemed himself. And Jesus did not judge him either. So this is the aim that we should have. I'm not saying that we're going to be blind and we're going to be accepting of everyone, but that's the examples that we should attain for, that we should um, look for in the Jesus examples as well, to use that ability of taking a moment and not being so reactive when we something is triggering us. Take a moment, do what Emmanuel did to Chico Xavier in a case. If you get angry, use the água da paciência. Fill up a mouth with water, count to 10, and just by the time you swallow that water, you're going to be able to think clearly instead of reacting, and be more proactive and see in a way that act in a way that you're not judging other people, you're not scrutinizing other people, and you might even be able to assist them. Use that action of that you could have criticized by helping them and offering them a new alternative way of acting, instead of just keeping to yourself and criticizing that person. Because as just we saw, we can we can speak up when we see something that we believe is wrong, but it's just how we do it, how we approach that person, how we approach that situation. Are we going to make the situation worse, or are we going to bring that peace and that mildness and that meekness that is required of Christians? So it's quite an important thing to remember, and I think that brings me to the end of everything that I'm able to bring from my hard drive and into you guys. what I've been reading, what I've been studying. In my laptop is just showing me that I'm running out of juice, so I'm better plug in here before I go bye bye. Okay, okay, I'm back to normal now. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, or you would like to say anything, we'll bring it back. I'll see you in here. See if she has anything to add.
Cool. So I just want to say thank you so much, Mani, to remind us and talk about this beautiful, sweet, very sweet sentiment, which is indulgence. Um, and I think was a good, really thank you for presenting such a way that was practical and easy to understand, bringing the projection that defense mechanism that some of us we know about it, but it's really hard for us to pick up when we're doing it and being reminded. It's a good opportunity for us to be more aware and try to pick up why it's happening. So by being able to do that, we can work on our self discovery, self analysis, and try to do, as you said, if we see something, some imperfection or something that someone else is doing that we recognize in us as well, then we can just do the opposite so we can improve ourselves. Yeah, indulgence is really beautiful. And even related to charity, the indulgence, the benevolence, and the forgiveness, they all very light, very pure sentiments and virtues that we are going towards. We're not there yet. But one
Yeah,
way of doing, the way to do is really through our self discovery and applying the knowledge that we are acquiring. But I really admire that indulgence sentiment and was really well done. Thank you so much, Moni.
yeah. It's and if we can't really, because sometimes it's easier to use the concepts and the words that we are used to, and like I mentioned before, in the English language, sometimes, because how many times in your daily lives do you actually see people saying the word indulgence?
Mm.
It's
Not
not very
much.
used, not
No,
much, not very
not
much used in
often.
English. So
No.
if we try to imagine and to apply into, and to refer in a more practical way, like I mentioned before, I think tolerance and respect, it's
Mhm.
it's 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 very much easier, because if you say indulgence, it's something that it's so, like
Yeah.
it's like a pure sweet sentiment, and sometimes we
Mhm.
feel we feel overwhelmed by this
Yeah.
idea of being indulgent. So just by trying to be less reactive into our actions, in our judgments of others, and being more tolerant, being more respectful in how other people act, and how other people think, how other people react. Because a lot of the times that we see stuff online, or in the comments, and sometimes we feel so attached to them that we sometimes feel they are directed to us, and we feel
Yeah.
we feel we directed to us, and we feel
Indireta,
like,
né? How we say
yeah,
indireta. Foi uma
yeah, it's
indireta. Indirect.
a lot of the times, a carapuça serve, sometimes the
Yeah.
glove fits, and we like, it's like a bait, like a bait that people leave there, and we just easily grab into it, and then we go into long threads of conversation and discussions, and sometimes some of them go into very disrespectful and unconsiderate ways towards other people. So it's important that we take the time, because now we have a lot of time in our hands. Now that we are in lockdown, take the time to think back into how we're going to best engage in that conversation, or engage on that thread. What what sorts of feelings and what sorts of thoughts are going to be brought up by your comments in somebody else that is reading on the screen, or on a conversation. I'm talking about screen because that's how we're living these days, but or in a conversation over the phone, or somebody in your bubble, for example. How is that going to affect them? It's very, you know I think tolerance and respect, it's a very much easier ways to apply into our daily lives. And then of course that will start to develop into true indulgence, where we somebody do something to us, we don't feel so threatened by them that we're going to project that psychological projection that we have in us into them. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's very hard. It was very difficult for me to study and to realize and to see and to be reminded that the importance of the true meaning of charity, that we should be doing it on a daily basis.
Yeah, as you were talking, just came to my mind something that when Divaldo Franco was here, someone asked him, how can you be so calm? Asked Givaldo, right? How can you be so calm, so focused on your work? What's your secrets? And then he said, lots of inner life. I'm not sure if I'll be translating well, but in Portuguese, muita vida interior. That's how he says. It's lots of inner life, meaning we are most of the time just out, just thinking outside, as Mani said, just reacting on the phone, on TV, at work, but we don't take much time for ourselves to stop and to analyze ourselves or just to be with ourselves, with our thoughts. And that is one of the recommendations of Divaldo, as he can reflect about his actions, his thoughts, and himself, then he can manage better. So we can also use lockdown to have these times when we have breaks, because we all have breaks. So what we do with our break, what we do with our time, and this time of being calm with ourselves, just reacting and thinking about ourselves is very important as well, to be able to identify how can we do better, what are the things that we can improve on. So just came to my
Yeah.
mind.
So I just have to say thanks everyone for this opportunity to dive into this topic. And I hope everybody enjoyed it, or will enjoy later on when
Yeah.
they watch this. People that are not in New Zealand but other parts of the world. And God bless us all.
Thank you, Mani. Thank you so much. Cool. So now we are going to the final part of our meeting, where we do the vibration, where we use this positivity, the energy, our willingness to do something to help. And together, this becomes stronger. And together, we can do something tonight or whenever you're doing watching this. And so, what we'll do is the vibration, followed by the final prayer, and then we're gonna say bye. So if you wanna put a glass of water to be magnetized, now is the time. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna put some music, Mani, or not today. Okay, yeah, we're not going to put a music because sometimes a bit tricky with Facebook and Instagram as well. But there is a beautiful picture also to of nature to inspire us. So after this beautiful, sweet, and light lesson with lots of meanings and importance for us, let's unite our thoughts, especially our feelings, and together let's vibrate. First, embrace our planet Earth, our beautiful school that every day bring us opportunities of learning, of understanding others, and especially ourselves. Let's embrace our planet with lights of peace, of health, of kindness and love. Let's help with cleaning the negativity away and bringing lots of positive energy. especially to those places that need the most. Let's vibrate to the planets, sorry, to the countries where is still conflicts between nations, where is still unfortunately wars. Vibrate to the leaders that can maybe put a final stop in the war, in those conflicts. Let's also take our kindness, our generosity to those that live on the streets, that temporarily don't have a home, a place to stay. Let's take our hope, our faith, so they can feel and believe that better days will come in their lives. Let's vibrate to those that are facing physical disease, mental, psychological challenges at the moment, that they can receive consolation, they can receive courage and strength to face with resignation, learning the lessons that we all need to learn. Let's also take our love to those that recently discarnated and are not aware fully of the situation, that they can be brave enough to recognize their state and know that life is eternal but have different phases and new opportunities. Let's also think about our families, whether they are in New Zealand or somewhere overseas. Let's take to them our love, our kindness, our best wishes. Also vibrate to our friends, people from our work, and maybe think about someone that we know that is going through a hard situation at the moment, a challenge, whether it's because of disease, financial circumstances, or any other reason. Let's focus on that person or people that we know are struggling at the moment and sending them our love, our support. And now, with our hearts full of love, gratitude, feeling really light after this lecture, with all these good sentiments that we learned about indulgence, forgiveness, which is something that brings us so much lightness in our lives, in our hearts. We just have reasons to say thank you and be grateful for being here, for being learning, so that we can apply more and more what we learned in our daily lives. And we ask the superior spirits to keep helping us by giving courage, braveness, to keep trying our best and never give up. Even when we don't manage to do what we are supposed to do, that we can always get up and try again and have faith that we will achieve what we need to. Thank you so much for this beautiful night. And would you like to ask permission to God, Jesus, and the spiritual friends to finish another Allan Kardec meeting tonight? Thank you. So be it. All right. So thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mani, for the beautiful lecture. We hope to see everybody again next week for our study group. You can check on Facebook and Instagram as well what is going to be the studies specifically on gospel and spirits book. You can check it out. So have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.